Well, guys, we do have the official drop of the 2025 AFL fixture. And in this video, I am going to be going through some of the interesting fixtures, some of the quirks in the fixture, and just giving my thoughts on them. So we will be kicking things off with opening round. We did already get this fixture last week, and it is no real surprise. Obviously, all four of the northern clubs hosting games in opening round. The pick of the bunch there, probably the Thursday and Friday night slots, with Brisbane and Geelong and also Sydney and Hawthorn. And a lot of people not happy about opening round. It does sort of start off the season in a bit of a sluggish way. Most of the competition isn't playing, and I'm really not a fan of it, and hopefully they do get rid of this going forward, but unfortunately it doesn't sound like it. The AFL does like those northern markets getting sellout games straight off the bat. In terms of round one, we do have Richmond and Carlton again opening the season in Melbourne. We do have Hawthorn playing on Friday night against Essendon, both of these clubs getting a lot of primetime fixtures. You will also notice there is a Thursday night game pretty much every week of the season in 2025. And you will also notice they have tweaked the starting times of the Saturday slots. The early game now starting at 1:20 Eastern, where normally it was 1:45. And they have also brought forward the twilight fixture by 20 minutes. And I think what they are trying to do here is give Fox a bit of a lead into the Saturday night game. Of course, all Saturday games will be on Fox in 2025, not on Channel 7. So they will probably want to put in a bit of a preview, maybe bring in a new show or something like that. In round two, we do have Essendon playing Adelaide at the MCG, a bit of an interesting one. Normally that would be at Marvel Stadium. Not sure the last time those two clubs did play at the MCG. And we've also got a Brisbane home game during the day early in the season against the West Coast Eagles. That will be at 12:10 p.m. in Queensland with daylight savings, a very early start. And you do also have the 3:10 game in Perth, 6:10 on the East Coast. That'll be a primetime fixture. The AFL really trying to make Sunday night football a thing again this year. In round three, we do have a night game in Launceston, Hawthorn and the Giants. Usually they don't play night football in Launceston, but at that time of the year it will be quite nice in terms of weather, and another little interesting work there. You do also have the Sunday night Western Derby in the East Coast. That will be a Fox game, of course, 3:10 p.m. in Perth. In round four, we do have Collingwood and Carlton on a Thursday night. Bit of an interesting one. Normally that is a Friday night or maybe a Sunday 3:20 slot. Be interesting to see if that affects crowds at all. We do have a Friday night game in Geelong, and also North Melbourne getting a standalone Saturday night game against Sydney in Marvel Stadium. In round five, it is of course Gather Round. We did already get the fixture for this. The main features here obviously being the new ground in the Barossa Valley at Lyndoch, a small town there, not too far out of the northeast part of Adelaide. That does get two games, North Melbourne and Gold Coast, and also Fremantle and Richmond. There is not going to be any games in Mount Barker this year. And we do also have the Saturday. It's not really a double header because the early game is kicking off at 1:20 Eastern, and then there is going to be a gap of around 2 hours before the Saturday night game at Adelaide Oval. In round six, we do have the traditional Thursday Easter game in Brisbane and Collingwood. North Melbourne again getting the 3:20 Good Friday slot. And then the Eagles will be playing against Essendon on Friday night. That will be a Fox game at 6:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do obviously have the traditional Easter Monday game, Geelong and Hawthorn at the MCG, as well as a Sunday night game between Western Bulldogs and St Kilda. A bit of a weird one, but again, the AFL really trying to make Sunday night football a thing. In round seven, we do have Anzac Day. Of course, Melbourne and Richmond have made Anzac Day Eve a thing. They are playing on a Thursday night. We do have Collingwood and Essendon, Anzac Day falling on a Friday. They are going to be playing in the 3:20 slot on Anzac Day. And then Fremantle and Adelaide will be going head-to-head at 6:10 p.m. Western Standard Time on the Friday night. That will be Fremantle's Len Hall game. Again, that will be a Fox-only slot, so not a true Friday night game in that sense. We do also have the Saturday night slot at Manuka Oval in Canberra. The Giants and the Bulldogs, they do tend to play there a fair bit. And we have got Carlton and Geelong at the G on the Sunday 3:20. In round 8, we do have some weird Thursday and Friday night fixtures. Essendon and North, there is a bit of a rivalry there. North Melbourne getting a standalone Thursday night game. And then on Friday, a really weird Friday night game, St Kilda and Freo at Marvel Stadium. They did play a bit in the Ross Lyon era in a primetime fixture, but a bit of a strange fixture there. We do have the first of the Western Bulldogs Ballarat games against Port on the Saturday, and we do have two derbies on the Sunday, the Swans and the Giants in Sydney, and then a Sunday night Q clash between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. I believe that is a public holiday the next day in Queensland, which is why they've done that. In round 9, Fremantle hosting Collingwood in a Thursday night game. That'll be quite a good one. They did play a draw on a Friday night in 2024. Gold Coast playing the Western Bulldogs up in Darwin, and of course the showdown in Adelaide also on the Saturday night. And North Melbourne playing their first Hobart game at what is now called Ninja Stadium, a Sunday twilight slot against Brisbane there. So we will see a bit of nighttime or evening time football in Tasmania in 2025. In round 10, we do have the second of the Gold Coast Darwin games against Hawthorn on a Thursday night. That is the same format they did in 2020, where they did have the Saturday night and the Thursday night fixtures back to back. We do have two 4:15 games for some reason, Port and Geelong and GWS and Freo, and just the one standalone Saturday night game, Bulldogs and Essendon at Marvel. In round 11, we do have Geelong and the Bulldogs in Geelong. The Bulldogs always seem to play down there for some reason. Usually it is a prime time fixture. We do have the Dreamtime game on the Friday night, Essendon and Richmond. They have made this a Friday night game for the first time instead of the normal Saturday night. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. The reason they have done that is, of course, Channel 7 not getting Saturday games unless it is a special event. So they have just pivoted it to the Friday night game, and it is just a regular Channel 7 game for that one. And we do also have somewhat of the doubleheader, Carlton and the Giants playing in the afternoon slot at Marvel Stadium, and then Collingwood and North Melbourne playing on the Saturday night. They will clear out the stadium and get people back in the gates for that, so it won't be a true double header. In round 12, it is a pretty standard slate of fixtures. We do have Hawthorn playing another Friday night game against Collingwood, and 3 games in New South Wales and Queensland on the Saturday. And then we do get an Alice Springs game at 3:20 Eastern, Melbourne and St Kilda, into a Sunday night game, West Coast versus Geelong in Perth. That is a public holiday the next day in Perth, which is why they're taking advantage of that. In round 13, we do get sort of a weird Friday night game, Adelaide and Brisbane. Usually they do like to have at least one Victorian club playing in every Thursday and Friday night game. I think that will be a Channel 7 game, so sort of a weird fixture for that. We do get a Saturday night game in Canberra, GWS and Port Adelaide. Port have played there a few times. And on the Sunday, we do get the Bunbury game, North versus West Coast. That is a game that North Melbourne have sold to the West Australian government, and they are playing in the city of Bunbury, around 2 hours south of Perth. They do really want to show off that wine region in the southwest of WA. There is direct flights between Busselton Airport and Melbourne, which is around 50 k's from Bunbury. Apparently that ground has had a recent renovation, but it is really only a local footy ground, so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like for an AFL game. We do obviously have the Carlton Essendon Sunday night game. They are trying to make that a thing where Carlton and Essendon play the day before the King's birthday, and then of course we do have Melbourne and Collingwood on King's birthday at the MCG. In round 14, we do get another Friday night game in Launceston, Hawthorn and Adelaide. Another weird sort of fixture for that. That will be a Channel 7 game. So that is the second of the Friday night fixtures in Launceston. And we do get North Melbourne's home game against Fremantle in Perth. That is the second of their home WA games back to back. So Freo fans will be happy about that, and also the club not having to travel as much in 2025. And we do also get sort of a later Sunday twilight game, West Coast versus Carlton at 4:10 p.m. Western time. So 2 games at Optus Stadium in that weekend. In round 15, we do get a Fremantle versus Essendon Thursday night game. That is an interesting fixture. Freo getting 2 home Thursday night games on Channel 7 in 2025. We do get a Friday night game in Geelong and Brisbane. Of course, they did play that prelim final last year, one of the best games of the year. And we do get Carlton and North Melbourne at the MCG. I'm not sure when the last time they played at the MCG was, but a nice little Saturday afternoon game there. And we do have 2 games to finish the round out on the Sunday. There will be somewhat of an overlap in terms of the starting time of the second game with the finish of the first game, but not really marquee matchups there. In round 16, we do move into the unscheduled games. This is the floating fixture, so the AFL probably going to release the dates and times of this around round 10 or 12, you would think. We do get Collingwood playing the Eagles at Marvel Stadium, one of Collingwood's Marvel Stadium games. We do have the Tasmanian derby of sorts, Hawthorn and North Melbourne in Launceston. In round 17, we do have Richmond going down the highway to play Geelong at GMHBA Stadium. They did do that last year. And obviously most people expecting Richmond to be near the bottom of the ladder. So we would expect Richmond maybe to be making that trip a few times in the next few years. In round 18, we do get the other Ballarat game, Western Bulldogs and Adelaide. So they are playing the two SA teams in Ballarat. That'll be a early Saturday or Sunday fixture due to the lighting situation in Ballarat. We do have North Melbourne getting another MCG game. They have had around 3, I believe, at this point against Melbourne there. In round 19, we do have Hawthorn and Port playing in Launceston. Of course, we did have that Ken Hinkley situation after the semi-final in 2024. I would have thought maybe they would play that in Melbourne, but that is the second meeting for the year. Of course, the other one being in Gather Round. In round 20, we do have the other of the Sydney derbies, GWS and Sydney, this time at NG Stadium in Homebush. And you do also have the Showdown and the Derby in that round as well as the Q Clash. So it is somewhat of a rivalry round in terms of that, in terms of the local derbies. And you do also have all the Victorian clubs playing each other in that week as well. In round 21, we have Geelong and Port Adelaide playing in Geelong. Port Adelaide winning that one last year. You do have Melbourne hosting the Eagles at Marvel Stadium. A bit of a weird one. Normally that would be at the MCG. Not sure when the last time that happened was. And we do get Fremantle versus Carlton, bit of a rivalry brewing between those two teams, given some controversial games in the last few years. In round 22, we do have Essendon playing Geelong in Geelong. That did happen a couple of years ago, but I think that may have been in a COVID-affected year, so not a massive crowd, but now they do have the 40k capacity. So it'll be interesting to see whether there's a lot of fans locked out of that one, especially if Essendon do outperform the expectations in 2025. We do have North Melbourne playing the Giants in Canberra. Bit of a weird one there. And you do get the two WA and SA clubs playing against each other. In round 23, we do have the second and final Hobart game for North Melbourne playing Richmond down there. Richmond did play down there, I believe, in 2015. But that'll be an interesting one in terms of crowd. They should draw pretty well down there, even if Richmond aren't a top team as expected in 2025. And in the last round of the year, we do get GWS playing St Kilda at NG Stadium. We do have a couple of Marvel fixtures, North and Adelaide, and the Western Bulldogs and Freo. 3 MCG games, Collingwood, Melbourne, Richmond, Geelong, and Essendon Carlton. Some big drawing games there. And we do get Brisbane and Hawthorn at the Gabba. They haven't played a hell of a lot against each other at the Gabba. That should be a pretty good game. Round 24 really doesn't matter too much in terms of scheduling because they do have the bye. But the AFL, you would expect, isn't going to announce this until around 3 or 4 weeks before, where they do want to get the most consequential games probably on the Sunday, as they have done in recent years in terms of finals, and really finish the season strong in terms of that. So the fixture does look a little bit different in 2025. We do have more Thursday night games. I think 23 of the 25 weeks will be Thursday. I suspect maybe the last 2 weeks of the season you won't have a Thursday night fixture. We do have a lot more Sunday night games, which is interesting. I think that will hamper crowds a little bit, especially if you are coming from the country or you do have young kids. It may be a little bit harder to get to. And obviously the big change on the Saturday, it is going to be a Fox exclusive day, Super Saturday. All games will be produced by Fox. Especially in Victoria, you won't get any free-to-air games on the Saturday. If you do live in the other states, you will get your team on Channel 7, even if it is a Fox-produced game, but sometimes it will be on a delay. And they have just tweaked the starting times on the Saturday to give that Saturday night game a bit of a lead-in. And obviously we do have the floating fixture for the last 8 or 9 weeks. I don't love it, but it obviously makes money. The broadcasters like it, and it does give the AFL more flexibility to juggle things around in terms of that. But anyway, guys, that is going to be all we're going to have time for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.